Welcome to the Circle of Insight. I'm Carlos Vasquez, doctoral candidate in psychology, where we tackle the issues that you've chosen with leading experts in the field. Today we have Vicki Higgins, CEO, author, and speaker of Accelerated Shift Marketing. Vicki and I have been talking about stress management. She is a stress management expert. The last time we spoke in part one of the circle, we discussed some of the physiological, psychological, negative consequences of stress. We talked about how it impacts society, how it impacts your family, how it impacts you as an individual, how it impacts the corporations. It can even affect the bottom line. Today we'll run down some of the statistics we mentioned earlier. 2 million Americans quit their jobs every month. What are some of the other things that can impact? Like, how many Americans say they're stressed about their job?
77% of Americans say they're stressed about their job. 90% of healthcare visits are for stress-related issues. And over 1 million people miss work because of stress. So it definitely impacts a lot of areas of life.
So we saw a lot of those issues, but today we're actually going to find out, well, how can we overcome it? How can we overcome stress? So first thing we want to do is, how can we handle this monster called stress?
Well, I'll give you 3 tips that I had experience with in my life and also shared with my team. And the first tip is to understand what's triggering your stress. So is it a trigger coming from your job? Are there particular things that happen? One of my stress triggers was the fact that I had kind of an open door policy in my office and people would just come in. And I had a decent sized team. And so suddenly one person would come in and that might be 10 minutes. And then the next person would come in and the next person would come in. And I realized that them opening my door or knocking on my door was a stress trigger to me because I was trying to get something done.
Stressing me.
I know. It was just this revolving door for like 2 hours of people coming in asking one quick question. I just need one thing. So we ended up changing the policy and I noticed that was a trigger for me. So we had a conversation and I said, that's triggering me to be a little bit reactive and I don't want to be reactive to you. So let's come up with a time, like if you can jot down all your questions and the things that you need from me, and we're going to say like from maybe 10 to noon is fine. That gives me a couple of hours first thing in the morning to get my work done, and it allows me to be a little bit more open and available to you. And then we only scheduled, short meetings. So people needed to come prepared, they needed to come with some solutions, and they needed to come with the collaborative mindset of how can we help each other solve these problems. So we understood what the triggers were. For some people, that was my trigger. For some people, a trigger might be money and finances and getting a bill in the mail. And for some people, a trigger might be a family situation. So understanding the foundation of what are your triggers, what's causing your stress. I think too often we're a society that has a tendency to pop a pill instead of really dealing with what the trigger and what the foundational root of the problem is. So getting to the source of it is step number 1, understand the triggers and come up with a way to maybe work around that trigger or find a different way to take a breath and not answer right away and not be reactive, but to be aware of what the triggers are. So awareness of the triggers is step number 1.
Now on that, let's explore this a little bit more on the awareness of the trigger. So are you saying maybe identify certain physiological changes, such as tension or fast heartbeat or headaches?
You can certainly notice a feeling if you're getting stressed. You're just getting that kind of gritty, feeling. So if you're aware enough to notice that feeling, but you can also recognize things that are happening in your life, like if you're having road rage or if you're, if you just notice these things that are kind of unconsciously coming out of you, being aware enough to take a step and go, oh, wow, why did I just, flip the guy in that car, the bird, or why did I just yell at my employee, or why did I just raise my voice to my child, or what is the reaction that's happening, and then step back a minute and understand like what's triggering that. Why did I do that? And so just having a moment to really understand where that's coming from. For some people, there might be a bit of a long line. And so the reason that you're having some road rage may not be because the car really, ticked you off, but it might be because something happened at work or something happened that morning or something's just really started your day off on a bad path and you've been very reactive all day because of it. So taking the time to understand the foundation of what's continually triggering you. Sometimes journaling helps with that. Sometimes just jotting down times that you're angry or have those blow-ups and recognizing, is there anything that's similar and consistent that's coming up? And so really being aware of the triggers, and that takes some time to recognize. Sometimes it doesn't take that much time at all, when you blow up and you can just kind of be like, oh my gosh, why did that just happen? So, so really being aware of the foundation and some of the source of what those problems are.
That's one of the ideas that Vicki has that I love, is actually jotting those things down, because it does two things, right? It lets us see why we're getting upset, but it also calms you down while you're writing it. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, because now you're looking at it from a distance, you're looking at it as a third person and going, oh, wow, why did I do that?
Right.
And it gives us a great tip. What's tip number 2?
Tip number 2.
You beat tip number 1.
We mentioned in the first segment about a lot of people are living by default. They're just in this habit or in this rut of life. So tip number 2 is take time to design your life. In our society today, we plan more on a vacation than we do our life. So my tip number 2 is plan your life. Take time to actually plan each of those areas of your life. So health, wealth, relationships, how you want it to be. What's the vision that you have for that area of your life? And it's amazing what that does. It gives you clarity on how you want your health and fitness to be. It gives you clarity on what type of relationships you want to have, on what type of work environment you want to work in, and how you want to be portrayed in the work environment, as well as the type of people you want to work with. So it really provides a lot of clarity in designing your life. And what that does from in my opinion, a psychological perspective, is it starts you down the path of being able to see something different rather than the rut that you're just in and living by default. So this is living by design instead of by default, and it's designing how you want your life to go. And there's something magical that happens in the universe when you write it down and you actually have it in your head that, wow, this is how I want my life to be. So you sometimes have a moment to take a breath before you react to something that's triggering you. Sure. And you're like, wait, do I want my relationship to be like this? No, I don't. So let me just take a breath and find a different way around handling this. And you may not have all the answers right away, but it's a practice. It's training your brain to get into a new habit. And so designing your life is the first step in training your brain in a different way. Instead of being so reactive and living by default, it's training your brain in a new way to design your life and live in a more proactive way.
Now, when you're saying writing it down, heading the goals, do you divide them up into categories? Do you say, what kind of relationship do I want? What kind of career do I want?
Yeah. It's different for different people. I like things to be very simple. So I have a list of, 8 F's that I use in a lot of things.
Right.
So your faith, family, friends, your fitness or health, your fun, your finances, your firm or career. That's the only F I could come up with for work.
That's a good
so
one.
Your firm or your career, and your feelings. And so pretty much most things in life kind of can fall into one of those categories. So I make a list. This is something that helped me get out of a depression after my divorce. And then it also helped me make some decisions around changing jobs and taking on my own business. But I looked at each category of my life. I looked at how I wanted to design that category and what I wanted my life to look like. And then I was able to move toward that. And it really helped me I made a list on the left-hand side of a piece of paper. And each day I made sure that by the end of the week, I had a check in each one of these areas. And it really helped me start looking at life in a different way and incorporating fun and making time for friends and making time for family and making time for fitness.
Can you elaborate on what do you mean checking off? I don't.
So when I was going through a divorce and I was really struggling with some depression and some things that were happening in my life at that time, I wondered, why is this happening to me? And most people have that reaction to something that is frustrating or not the way they want it to be. So I decided I don't want to be on medicine. And so I have to figure out a way to move through this. So I had started with a few, like friends and family and fun, and added some other F's along the way, fitness and work and finances and that type of thing. So I came up with 8 F's, and I just wrote them down on the side of a piece of paper. And by the end of the week, I had Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday across the top. And by the end of the week, I needed to make sure that I did one thing in each of those categories.
There you go.
That's it. One thing by 7 days, one thing in each of those categories. And what that did is it started getting me away from focusing on the problem. So now my mental focus was somewhere else. It was not focusing on the problem. I was actually focusing, yeah, right. I was focusing on the designing my life. I wanted to spend more time with friends. I wanted to have people in my life that were supportive and encouraging. And it was a really great way to design my life. So for some people, they might just journal and write what they want their life to look like, and that might be fine for them. For me, I liked structure and something simple, and that was a tool that really helped me.
Do you think it makes a big difference when you're saying every day you try to do something, no matter how small it is, towards one of those F's? Do you think that's a big thing?
It was a big thing because our brain has a tendency to want to stay at the same place. Like, it's hard for change to happen in your brain, and you know that from being your background. You know how all the chemistry works in your brain. So when you're trying to change a habit of a daily life that has been learned year after year after year, it could be 20 years of doing this same cycle of get up, sit in traffic, go to work, feel stress, go home, try to cram everything in, go to bed, get back up. And your brain is just in that habit. So when you try to introduce something different, your brain is going to be like, abort, don't do anything different. Stay at this even level right here. So I think that it's really important to do one simple thing. You don't have to go change everything in your life right now, but one simple thing each day, whatever you feel. If it's something fun, going to a movie, getting outside, doing something fun with a friend. If it's something for your fitness, one thing, just do one thing. And then suddenly you start feeling better. When you're feeling better, you're more energized. When you're more energized, you're going to do more things to design your life. And it's kind of the first step in helping people have more energy, have more vitality, have more excitement and hope for creating the future that they really would like to create.
Hi, welcome to Adelante. This is Adelante Recovery, and my name is Yvette Kuglin, and I'm part of the staff.
Adelante Recovery Center has helped people in dual diagnosis for 5 years. We accept most PPO insurances and provide luxury accommodations and 24-hour support. To speak with an admissions counselor, call 1-888-242-4450.
A lot of times we don't even know what's wrong with us, and sometimes we need to get away to figure that out. So if you want to go for a little retreat out in Corona Del Mar, which is a confidential location, we're here to help. So we're only a phone call away. Thank you.
As Vicki touched upon it, she mentioned how we kind of like to stay in this homeostatic situation. We don't like change. The odd thing is our human behavior, we kind of work like a snowball effect. Once that very first thing does change, like she was mentioning, whether we do fun or something for our feelings, it's a lot easier to keep moving forward in the other F's. There's another F, forward. So moving forward on those. That's really a big thing for human behavior. Once you get past that first initial point, everything becomes a lot easier. I think maybe you would agree with that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well,
Baby
tip
steps.
3.
Tip number 3. I'm a big believer in inner guidance. And a lot of people talk about meditation, and that can come in a variety of ways. So I teach a class called Meditation for Type A Personalities.
What is that?
For most of us that are drivers, we're executives of companies, we're very passionate, we're always on the go, we're the one making things happen. It is really tough to sit down and actually go, your mind just starts racing and there's so much to do. Your to-do lists are going through your head and you have no opportunity to take time for yourself and time to be in stillness and in quiet. But I'm a strong believer that in stillness and in quiet is when we have some of the most profound progress forward. So meditation for type A personalities is finding the opportunity to still your mind and be quiet. And that could come in the form of taking a hike, riding a bicycle, going for a jog. For type A personalities, jogging or cycling can be very meditative, and that is totally fine because it's something that's really allowing your brain to just shut off for a little bit so you can just be in stillness and just be. And there's something magical that happens when you meditate, when you do yoga, when you have those moments of stillness and quiet, because you allow something that's a little bit of a higher energy or a greater vision to come into your realm. And I believe that we all have an inner guidance. I call it like an inner GPS system. So it's kind of like your inner GPS that's going to navigate you from where you are right now to where you want to be. So if you've done step 1 and you've figured out your triggers and you've accomplished step 2 of designing where you want your life to go, then when you take that time to meditate and to follow that inner guidance, that inner GPS system is going to lead you toward what you've created and designed as your life. And you can do that in the form of yoga, meditation, cycling, running. Just allow your mind to be still enough to have ideas come in and thoughts come in and just some quiet so you can think. Because so many of us type A's are just on the go and driving forward that we don't ever allow ourselves that quiet time to really just contemplate and think. And there are some magical things that happen when that occurs.
Very much so. A lot of studies show that meditation can reduce high blood pressure, can reduce the likelihood of diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Meditation helps you also focus better, helps to increase your activity in your prefrontal cortex where you make decisions, executive decisions, where you anticipate consequences. Lots of benefits to meditation. A wonderful tip again. And I love the analogies too. Inner GPS is great. Let me ask you a little bit about the meditation. To explore a little further, would you recommend once a day?
You know,
5 minutes,
as
20
much
minutes?
as you can do, because anytime that you can like take a moment. When I was feeling stress at my job, one of the tips as I started doing these in my life, one of the tips that I created for myself was I wrote out how I wanted my day to go when I was designing my work day, and I tried to take time to meditate. So I would take my handy dandy little phone, set an alarm every hour, and it was just a chime every hour. Every hour.
Wow.
And it was just a reminder to like take a moment, breathe, and take a minute to just breathe. And that was so helpful for me to be clear, focused, able to not be reactive, but to really be thoughtful in my decision making. And it really helped me have a lot less stress. So that was just one thing I did, was just like every hour I took just a breath, a minute, 2 minutes. It wasn't like a big long meditation, but it was something that helped me, a baby step to help me move forward. Then I worked into the ability to maybe meditate for 10 minutes in the morning. I used a guided meditation because that helped me not think so much. You know, I was trying to think about so many things, and a guided meditation allowed me to listen to somebody else guide me through some thoughts or visualizations or affirmations that I could really use in my meditation practice. And then it took me also through just some quiet time, but it let me just get to that point. So guided meditations for me worked, setting an alarm on my phone worked, and also just now I have the ability to do my own still meditations. They're a bit longer, but I recommend, you know, at least in the morning and the evening before you go to bed. It's a great opportunity to be grateful and thankful for what you do have in your life, and also take a minute to kind of set your intentions for the day. And it's also a great opportunity before you go to bed to be grateful for the things that did transpire in a good way, and to forgive yourself for the things that maybe didn't go the way you wanted them to go. And then you have the opportunity to just clean the slate, start over the next day, and just still keep incorporating it. But those are a few tips that helped me.
That's wonderful stuff. So remember, try to meditate at least a couple times a day, morning or evening, for a few minutes. So the 3 tips. First tip, understand your trigger.
Yeah, it's so important.
Step 2, take a step back. Take a look.
Design your life.
Design your life. And step 3, of course, meditation. Now, I know you wrote a book last year, I think it was.
Yeah.
You wrote a book. Here it is for all you to see. It's called No Mistakes: How You Can Change Adversity into Abundance. Mm-hmm. And this is interesting because you're switching from one stage, adversity,
Right.
which causes a lot of stress for a lot of people,
Absolutely.
into abundance, which hopefully will reduce your stress. So how do you do that?
You know, a lot of things that we just discussed. This book, No Mistakes, came out last year, and it has the 8 F's that I talked about.
Oh, it does. Great.
It's available through Barnes & Noble, and it's also available on Amazon.com. It has the 8 F's. It has 5 steps that you can take. We covered 3 of them today, but it has the 5 steps that you can take to take challenges and turn those adversities or challenges into abundance. And it was the precursor to how I came into becoming a stress management expert, because I noticed a lot of people that the challenges they were facing were work related. And they were really struggling. I relate to a lot of executives. I was an executive in corporate America, so a lot of people that were coming to me talked about challenges in the workplace, challenges with stress that they were really experiencing and they didn't know how to get out of. So as I started consulting with people and working through things with people and helping them with tips that I had used, and also doing so much research, it was really fascinating to go from adversity to abundance. And then when people sometimes reach that level of abundance, they have that feeling like, gosh, I feel like something's missing. You know, I might have the success, the money, and power, but something's missing in life. And so then we took the next step of really defining a little bit more of life purpose. So it's been a really interesting progression. I've gone from No Mistakes, how to turn adversity into abundance, and talking about challenges, to the next book, which is called Radiate versus React. Radiate versus React. And Radiate versus React it's basically an ebook that's a guide on not only the tips that we talked about today, but a number of other tips and things that you can use every day in your work life, in your home life, to help relieve the stress and radiate. I just call like that breath of radiation, like you radiate and you feel like that energy of who you are, rather than being so closed up and so reactive to situations that are happening. So Radiate versus React is the next book, and that is available now. So we're actually giving all of your viewers and listeners a complimentary copy.
So thank you very much for that, Vicki.
Absolutely.
So if you want a free copy of that ebook, please email me at circleofinsight@icloud.com. That's circleofinsight@icloud.com. You can email me there, and I was able to send you the code, and we'll be able to get that free ebook. But we're going to continue on a little bit more. We talked about Radiate versus React, and I want to get back to that a little bit, if we can explore a little bit more.
Absolutely.
We talked a lot about reacting.
Yeah.
Society seems to react. We see that a lot of the TV shows. When they have arguments, the TV shows will show the arguments, a person overreacting typically, and then they leave. And nothing ever gets solved till later, and something dramatic has to happen for it to be solved. Well, that's not a really good way you want to live your life or to deal with relationships. You don't want to follow Modern Family all the time in this kind of protocol. Good show, but I wouldn't follow that protocol. So talk to me a little bit more about reactivity. Why do you think we do that? Is it because of upbringings, or what could possibly lead to that?
You know, it's such a good point. Media is all about drama, and so often they leave and they slam the door behind them.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really not the greatest example of how we want to live our life. But, you know, media and all the TV shows, it's there for entertainment, and it is there to be, you know, the grandest, most dramatic situation, and it's just entertainment. I don't think it's a great way to live our life or to model ourselves by, but I do think that it's a really interesting point, because that's what our children are seeing, that's what we're putting into our brains, and we need to be really conscious and careful about what we are watching and bringing into our system, because in some way that does have an impact on how we deal with things. It can be just for entertainment, but you might go to bed and have a nightmare, or you might wake up and be frustrated or angry about something. So I think that some of that comes from just the way that we're raised, and so many of us are raised on television and just many different shows that we DVR so we can't miss them. And then, you know, I think, you know, it's fine to have that entertainment, but as long as you're really in control of where you're going and how you're designing your life, and that you recognize that that's just entertainment, and I'm not going to react that way. I want my life to be different. I want my relationship to be different. I want my work life to be different. And you're taking time to design it, then those shows typically don't have as great an impact. Whereas people that are just by default living and just a habit of day to day to day to day to day, and they're in that rut, they have a greater tendency to be more reactive and react in a way that they've seen. We learn by example. And so if the examples that people are seeing, if those examples are in the TV shows and in the environments that they're brought up in that might not be the most positive environment, then, they have to take responsibility and do something to change that. So I think that it has a combination, it is a combination of things that cause us to react the way that we do, combination of family upbringing, combination of the things that we watch and the things that we bring into our life, a combination of just not knowing how to do anything different. And so what I want to do is try to help people with these tips have some how-to quick tips that you can integrate into your life now. So just giving people some options instead of always being in that rut and always reacting in a way that you've reacted. If you want your life to be different, you have to change some things. And that might be a little uncomfortable at first, but when you change some things and you have the opportunity to create a better life, it's going to be so much more impactful. Imagine what your life could be like and will be like if you change some of the stress. Imagine what your health would be like. Imagine what your family and your relationships would be like. Imagine what your fitness level would be like. Imagine what your life would be like, your finances and the career of your dreams. These are all possible for you and for each person, but you have to take the steps and the responsibility to design it. And the first step is handling stress so you can actually start creating the life that you really want.
That's wonderful stuff. And I would highly recommend that all of you, after you've watched the show, maybe take some time.
Yeah.
Write down some of the things that you want out of your life, because it is really important. It's your life. I don't know how many times we're going to be down here, but some religions will say more than once, but I believe once. So it's a great time right now to take control of your life. Don't let other things dictate your life. So we've covered a lot in the last hour. We've covered stress, what it can do to you, how does it affect your society, how does it affect the family, how does it affect the individual. We've learned the 3 tips from Vicki, which were wonderful tips. We've learned, again, how to turn adversity into abundance from her book, No Mistakes. And we're going to learn how to radiate versus react, which is a wonderful way to be able to interact with society, interact with your own personal goals in your life. And the final thing is, I know Vicki's got another book, and she just doesn't stop. She's got another book next year, I think, coming up in the spring or the summer.
Right. It'll come out next summer. It's called When Work Isn't Working. So a lot of opportunities that I've found in my life through being a published author is really recognizing the fact that so many people are unhappy in their jobs. And I'm not saying go leave your job, but there are some really great tips through handling stress and also understanding what you really want your life to be. So we've talked about designing your life. When work isn't working, just allows you to take the next step in designing the life that you really want to create. So I'm excited for that book to come out, and I'll have to come back and share it with you.
Yes, you do. I'm really excited about it too. Well, thank you once again for joining us, Vicki. It was such a pleasure having you. It was wonderful. The amount of energy is unbelievable. We thank you so much for coming. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Circle of Insight once again brings to you the issues that you have chosen with leading experts in the field to give you a comprehensive and multidisciplined look at different issues that we tackle with every day. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you in the next show.